Hi guys, and welcome back. So, week 7. Let's just talk a little bit about this. I'm going to kind of give you my viewpoint of what I thought that the answers would be for each of these. And so we have discussion number 1, which basically says share at least 2 steps in the total rewards planning process and state why you feel that they're the most crucial in the planning and the implement in the planning and into most the I can't even speak English. And state why you feel they are the most crucial to the planning and implementation processes. I'm going to leave that behind. I mean, I think that's really more of an opinion. I don't, it's kind of like saying what military service is the best. Obviously, it's the Navy, but everyone can come up with an opinion, and I'm sure that they could strongly support it as long as it's Navy, and everyone's going to be very strong about what they feel. But of course, the Navy's the best. But when we start talking about discussion number 2, describe how organizations can overcome resistance to change. This is actually a very, very big topic within management discussions. I mean, when we go to these academic conferences, everybody wants to kind of talk a little bit about the various things involved with, how they can overcome resistance to change and everything of that nature. Most of the time there's a lot of people who basically say, hey, resistance to change, you have to worry about those old fuddy-duddies who just don't want to get on board with the program. And boy, there's just so many sources of resistance to change. And I have a very, very unique thought process on this. I tend to feel that one of the best ways to get over resistance to change is understanding power structures. I think we talked. Well, actually, I don't think we talked about it in this class. There's a Joanne Martin who actually is a scholar in the field of culture. Likes to talk about organizations as being either integrated, differentiated, or fragmented. And so if you have integrated, obviously it's this idea that there's one single-use culture that sort of exists, and then you have the differentiate, or you have the fragmented, which is kind of it really doesn't exist. It's all broken up, and there's not really any cohesiveness that sort of exists. And then you have differentiated, which is kind of the in between, where there's these little sub pockets of culture that exist, and then those sub pockets get together, and they all form this big culture thing. And so what ends up happening with with resistance to change in that sense is that what I always say is that you have to identify what kind of culture that you have. If you feel that it's an integrated culture, then you need to understand the power structures that are going to exist within that. Differentiated subculture or differentiated cultures are going to have sort of power centers within each subculture, and you need to identify who those subculture power brokers are, and really work hard to bring them on board is sort of an idea that I would propose. And then in fragmented culture, basically you're not worried about it because in fragmented cultures, I don't know, it's kind of funny. They asked us when we were in our classes, we were learning about all of this stuff. They said, which one do you think culture really is? And I was shocked to imagine that half the class assumed it was fragmented. And in my personal opinion, that's chaos. I'm not sure in a chaos environment I'm too worried about how am I going to change things, just because of the fact that I'm probably more worried about bigger issues. But if you're in a fragmented culture, I mean, there's in my opinion, power structures become a little less difficult or more difficult to deal with, because it's trying to figure out who runs things and sort of that whatever. So the discussion number 3, which is describe best practices for communicating changes of total rewards programs. Again, this is kind of an opinion thing. I've always believed that communication is really a tool for learning. Okay, so if I don't communicate in a way that is appropriate for your learning, you're probably not going to learn anything that I'm telling you. And so as a result of that, you need to take a look at it from the perspective of, okay, we're going to describe, if we're going to describe the best practices for communicating those changes, and when I say the types of learning, there's kind of these four that you have. You have verbal, you have visual, audio, kinetic, and tactile. And so, if you work in a very good example, you know, many accountants tend to be more visual learners, only because that's kind of how they teach us on how to do things. Although my personal opinion, I think the best way that many of us learn is kinetic. I had myself tested, and I'm kind of I'm an audio kinetic learner. And so, because I'm an audio kinetic learner, you have to communicate with me in different ways than how most people do. Most people just send out an email and just say, okay, here's the email. And then you sit there, you read it, and you're like, okay, got it. I don't tend to process information as well by reading as I do by listening and then doing things, which is part of the reason why I like to do these videos, because it allows me to kind of keep up with that. And, so that's kind of my take on discussion question number 7. Discussion question number 8, I'm obviously not going to do a video on, because that's just kind of where you guys tell us how you feel about things. I'll kind of just briefly talk a little bit about that topic. First of all, this is my favorite discussion question that we have the entire time. It's not because my ego needs a little stroking. It's just about the fact that we go into these classes and we throw all this stuff at you, and we kind of go, well, what are they going to learn? We hope that they learn these objectives. That's kind of what we want to hear. But at the same time, it always fascinates me what part of the class gravitates towards people the most. I have looked at a couple week 8 responses, and there's first of all, every time we get to this, I always get a little emotional, because we put a lot of stuff into making these classes happen, and then when we get done with it, of course the hope is that you get something out of it, and if you do, fine. If you don't, we want to strive to make sure that we can do things better. So this is sort of it's not really a smiley survey as much as it's really sort of a what can I do better in order to better bring that stuff up. I know this won't be the last time that I take a video. I'm gonna try to do a video once I get everything graded. I know this weekend I'm gonna power through and get caught up on all of the all the grades that need to happen this week. So we're going to get that taken care of as soon as we can. And again, I'm very sorry that things kind of fell down the way that they did. And just sometimes life doesn't give you an option, and that's what I got to say. But I also got to say, I don't want to say this too loud, because the person that's who's listening could be affected by this. But make sure that you spend time with those you care about. It's really important. It really is. Okay. Things you never know. That's all I'm going to say. You never know. And so I'm just going to wish you guys good luck for this week. If you have any questions, reach out to me. I'm very open to my email. I haven't had anybody email me my business email yet, but I will. But I do monitor my my UMUC email, and so I will keep up with that. But thank you very much, folks, and have a good night.